Well, I'm still Jake, and it's still Ohio State right where I'm sitting. So we are going to talk about knives. Let's get into this fun little dude, the CRKT Pilar 3, a newer offering designed by one of my favorite guys as designer, Voxnays. He's like the king of ergonomics, I think. His knives are always just feel so comfortable and they look so clean. Although, I guess I'm partial because I'm a bit of a thumb slot snob. I'm gonna be careful how I say it. I end up messing it up. But thumb slot snob. I think it makes the knife look cleaner, and I love to open it so that I can slow roll it, or flick it or do whatever. But anyways, let's get some of the specs out of the way, and we'll get into the fun stuff. So this is the HCR version. The HCR 13M will be on a blade steel, so that will run you about $39. There is a D2 version that runs you about $52, so roughly $14 or so difference. They changed the backspacer on the D2 one, so look at that. It's like a brass backspacer, or it looks like it's coated in something. But you can get D2 steel for just a little bit more if you want to. Both of them, though, overall length, same thing, about 7.25. Again, it's a smaller knife. I usually try to not go below 7.5, but thanks to Vox's genius of ergonomics and so on that he's running with, it fits perfectly fine with that great front finger choil. So 7.25 overall, 3.6 ounces. It's a little bit of a pocket tank, not near as bad if you guys have ever had the first Pilar. That thing was an absolute pocket tank. This is not so bad, and that's in part to this G10 show side scale. It makes it a lot lighter. Of course, on the back here, a nice slab of stainless for the frame lock. A couple of fun little things to point out. Still talking about what it's made of. If you see, they got an over travel stop, which is really cool in a $40 knife, and it's a mid-mount over travel stop. And all that means is when you go to open this up, you can't press it so that it gets it out of whack and might change their detent. It'll kind of just come out so far and then stop, and it'll spring back to where they had designed it. So that's pretty cool to have something like that on there. If you noticed on the blade already, there it is, our logo for their nice ball bearing system, the IKBS right there. And it is no joke. This blade, it comes down and lands. One night when I was flipping it, there you go. See how it stops right on my fingernail? I mean, I had marks, the whole little row of marks in there. It looked like I was just stabbing my finger. You got to really know that thing's going to come down. It's the action on this thing is incredible for such a little knife and a little blade. I mean, you can open it all those standard ways you would like to. Again, with that little thumb hole opening, you can just slow roll it. The detent's not too strong to do that. You can flick it with your thumb perfectly fine. You can do the reverse flick. I always have to use my middle finger, or I cannot use my middle finger. I use my first finger, and it works perfectly. I have said in other videos that I've almost sworn off frame locks, and I thought it was because the frame locks I was getting just weren't that great, or the detent wasn't right, or whatever that may be. But I don't have a problem even slow rolling this thing. I mean, I'm putting most of my pressure back here, so I'm not pressing on the actual lock bar. If you press up here where that detent ball is, yeah, of course it's not gonna slow roll, but there's enough room here where I can keep my fingers out of the way. So I think that's really cool. Look, they just did an overall really nice job with this for, a $40 knife. I think they're looking at, like competing with, QSP and, Civivi. I'll put an Ortis out here later. That one's comes to mind with this action of how insane that thing is that you really got to watch. I mean, if you get your hand out of the way, it'll just drop right down. It's a bit of a little pendulum, so I think that's fantastic. I will point out one thing in here, and I've heard it best described as like a double clutch, and I kind of get it now. And there's a lot of travel time between when you break this lock bar to where it hits the detent ball there in the back. You can see the detent ball when it falls in that groove. So what I mean by that is when I break the lock, all right, so I'm here and I break the lock, and then it travels all this way before it hits that. And since it's not a detent ramp, it's just a ball, it's a little, you got to know that that's there, right? There's a little bit of an extra, so it travels that far until it hits that where, let's see here if I should have another one. All right, so like this guy, when I break the lock, it hits the ball. See how that's a lot less, right? When I break the lock, it hits the ball right there automatically. It's only just very, very minimal. So it doesn't become as big as a double clutch. Now, I don't know, maybe that's going to save your finger. You know, if you push it out just a little bit and then now it's not locked and it's on that little double clutch part, well, now I can just shut it like that. So I'm not saying anything's wrong with that. I don't think that that's an issue. Usually when you're closing it, you're pushing it over far enough anyways where, you know, you're doing that with it. That's fine as well. But it's a little different sometimes when you don't do that all the way, and then you have that little extra that you sort of got to push it past to get to it. But not a downside, just something to know since I'm talking about it, right? So overall, look, the ergonomics on this thing, I already said, Voxnay, he's a genius with this stuff. To have a small knife that's under 7.5 and fits perfectly comfortable in my hands, you know, like I can almost cover up the whole knife. That's terrific. That's absolutely terrific. I will say, and I've talked about this in another review, that if you don't use this forward finger choil, it is a little weird. You know, it's not that you can't use it. You know, if I were going to do this and cut open a package or whatever, it's fine. It's still a knife, but the way that it holds is it's like I don't know, I feel like I'm holding like a carrot or something. Like it's just kind of a little bizarre, but maybe that's bigger hands. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. You know, it's not like I have humongous hands or anything, but you know, bigger than average, I guess. But still, it works perfectly fine. But it's just something to kind of note. The overall design of this guy, I think it's terrific. They've certainly grown the, you know, Pilar, the large Pilar, and then sort of taken the best of those first two and came up with this one, you know, just sort of stretched out a little bit. I do personally kind of like more of the sheep's foot taper of the other two, but you know, whatever. Again, I think that this is another really home run for CRKT at 40 or 50 bucks, whichever one you want to get. It's a terrific knife. You know, Voxnay sort of has some designs that he likes to keep with, and you know, I can kind of bring out this is a 5.5 on loan to me, but you can see, you know, it's sort of like he figured out like, oh, people like this knife a lot, let's build off of that brand of whatever the Pilar was. We'll kind of take that battleship or rather flagship and sort of build off of that. You know what I mean? You can kind of see even like two screws, the lanyard hole, it almost all lines up, you know, and this is an outstanding knife. If you guys can get a hold of one of these 5.5s, those are crazy. But even this is the core from Fox, but it's still kind of the same concept, you know, like I know it's overall changed, but you can still see that this is just sort of like a plumped up handle in comparison, you know, the same opening method, all that type of stuff. So he really knows what he's doing, you know. And he kind of keeps that same pattern, and why not? You know, sell what wins, or wins what sells, or whatever that is. So we'll put out a couple comparisons. This guy I talked about earlier, the Civivi Ortis, this is almost the same exact price as this guy. I don't know, a little better steel here, that's for sure. You know, but I think the overall function of this thing and just its ergonomics are outstanding in comparison. It's not that this is bad, but you can see it's almost the same length. And certainly roughly about the same thickness, but a little heavier for that. We'll put out a Tenacious, smaller than a Tenacious, but, you know, a little different style knife. Get rid of that guy, just because I had the steel wool cut jack laying here from earlier. There you go. And I don't know, like I say, I always try to end on something that's familiar with a lot of people. So we'll put out the big Rat 1. And there you go with the Rat 2. Ooh, look at that. That's almost the exact same, isn't it? No, that's a good comparison. Probably weight-wise, too, these are really close. I mean, I got the scales on the Flytanium scales, so this is heavier than normal. But so look at these two. You know what I mean? If you can kind of compare some things there, that'd be a good comparison video overall. But all right, there you go. Look, that's the Pilar 3, and I appreciate John over at Grateful Panic. I always say it wrong. Grateful Panic Knife Reviews. For sending this over so I can check it out, and this will be part of my loaner series as well. So Very cool. All right, guys, that's it. We're almost at 10 minutes, and that's where I like to keep it. So by all means, go out and have a great day and promote some positivity. Take care.